Welcome to the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja. I am Nolene Ebel Ame, and my sign language interpreter is Bamidele John. Let's begin with the headlines. Fierce winds battered France and Britain on Friday as Storm Goretti barreled through northern Europe. Pope Leo raised concerns over conflicts and wars around the world. Plus, correspondent takes a look at landmark rulings and high-profile convictions by courts in 2025. And here is the news. The federal government will continue to provide the resources needed by the armed forces to address the security challenges in the country. President Tinubu, represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, gave the assurance at the special Jumat prayer as part of activities marking the 2026 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day held at the Abuja National Mosque. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports.
Oh, Allah keep Nigeria one. Allah keep Nigeria one. Allah will ask him to grant our politicians the wisdom to see things through the proper perspective. May all those who stare the affairs of this country, may Allah Ta'ala grant them the sympathy empathy to bring about decisions that will be to the benefit of the Nigerian people and Allah us together.
The 2026 Celebration and Remembrance Day of the Armed Forces is not only for financial support and to honor veterans, but also to provide an avenue to acknowledge the sacrifices of security personnel for their tireless efforts in safeguarding the nation.
Our prayer is for Allah to forgive the race of our deceased officers and men, and may God grant them, their families, the fortitude to bear the irreparable losses. And we pray Almighty Allah to continue to protect and empower our armed forces to subdue all the crises that are bedeviling our nation. And inshallah, in the fullness of time, we shall have an enduring peace and prosperity.
The special prayers also coincide with the successes recorded in the Northeast and other parts of the country. In Abuja, Brahman Jibrila, NTA News.
Armed Forces. In response to the continued misuse of the Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day and Armed Forces Remembrance Day, the Defense Headquarters has urged journalists and citizens to adopt Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day in all future coverage. A statement by the Director, Defense Information, Major General Samaila Uba, says January 15 is set aside by the federal government to honor the living personnel of the armed forces of Nigeria, while acknowledging the sacrifices of those who paid the supreme price to safeguard the nation's territorial integrity, as well as the lives and properties of its citizens. Previously known as Armed Forces Remembrance Day, the name was officially changed to Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day to reflect the dual essence of the occasion in honoring the living while also acknowledging the fallen heroes. The Defense Headquarters appreciates the media's unwavering support in the fight against insecurity and looks forward to even stronger collaboration ahead. Elsewhere, fierce winds battered France and Britain on Friday as Storm Goretti barreled through northern Europe, cutting power to hundreds of thousands of households in plunging winter temperatures. Adaobi Obiachina reports.
Forecasters from Britain to Germany urge people to stay inside as they issue weather warnings, including the rare highest level red wind alert for the British Isles of Scilly and Conway in southwestern England. In France, some 380 households lost power, the vast majority in the northern Normandy region, while some 65,000 households lost electricity in Britain. The squalls fell on trees in several regions, with at least one crashing on residential buildings in France's Seine-Maritime region without injuries, authorities say. Gusts of up to 160 kilometers per hour were expected in parts of Britain, and very large waves will bring dangerous conditions to coastal areas, Britain's Met Office said. It also issued an amber snow warning in Wales, central England, and parts of northern England, predicting snow of up to 30% in some areas. The UK National Rail Service has said train services will be affected over the next 2 days and called on people to avoid travel unless necessary. Passengers face cancellations and delay at Heathrow Airport. The full force of Storm Goreti takes its toll on transport system in the UK and beyond.
We had to trudge through the snow all through the city trying to find somewhere to stay.
University Station to New Street by train. Those been cancelled out. Looked for the buses. They've been cancelled out. Had to get a cab.
We thought coming home earlier before the weather warnings would have prevented any stoppage to the journey.
Adobe Obiechina, NTA News.
And from the Vatican, Pope Leo XIV has raised concerns over conflicts and wars around the world, declaring that war has come back in vogue and criticizing rising militarism and the erosion of multilateral diplomacy. The pontiff was speaking as he hosted diplomats in Vatican City. Musa Babaliu reports.
The Pope arrived for a special meeting with diplomats in Vatican City, the first of its kind since assuming leadership as Pope. As a tradition, prayers were offered before the commencement of the meeting. What was first brought up for discussion was global peace and the rising wars and conflicts around the world. The Pope painted a grim picture of international relations, arguing that traditional diplomacy focused on dialogue and consensus is being supplanted by aggressive posturing from individuals or coalitions. Highlighting a growing zeal for war, Leo lamented the undermining of post-World War norms that barred nations from using force to infringe on others' sovereignty.
A diplomacy that promotes dialogue and seeks consensus among all parties is being replaced by a diplomacy based on force by either individuals or groups of allies. War is back in vogue, and a zeal for war is spreading.
He further cautioned that the pursuit of peace through armament and dominance poses a severe risk to global stability. The speech comes amid ongoing global conflicts, including tensions in Venezuela, Europe, and the Middle East.
In this regard, I renew my appeal to respect the will of the Venezuelan people and to safeguard the human and civil rights of all, ensuring a future of stability and concord.
As the spiritual leader of over 1.3 billion Catholics, Pope's word carries significant weight in cause for ethical foreign policy and peace-building efforts. Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has met with his Lebanese counterpart Youssef Raji during a day of meetings with Lebanese officials. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Iran is ready for both war and negotiations. He said Iran do not seek war, but they are prepared for war and also prepared for negotiations. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said this upon arriving in Beirut for talks with Lebanese leaders. Israel has intensified its strikes on southern and eastern Lebanon in recent days, saying it has struck targets from both the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group and its Palestinian ally, Hamas. Kurdish fighters encircled by the Syrian army in 2 districts of Aleppo are to be sent to the Kurdish region of northeastern Syria, authorities said Friday. Syria's defense ministry earlier announced a ceasefire in the city after several days of clashes and granted the Kurdish fighters a deadline to leave 2 districts they control. In the coming hours, members of the SDF will be moved with their light weapons to the east of the Euphrates River, said a statement from Aleppo's media directorate, referring to the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces. Syrian government forces has prepared buses meant to move Kurdish fighters out of neighborhoods in Aleppo towards Syria's Kurdish region in the northeast. Kurdish fighters are refusing to leave the Ashafera and Sheikh Mosca mosque in areas in the city of Aleppo and intend to resist the Syrian army encircling them, a statement by the local councils of the 2 neighborhoods said. Elsewhere, Chinese, Russian and Iranian warships arrived in South African waters for a week of naval drills starting Friday off the coast of Cape Town as geopolitical tensions run high over the United States' intervention in Venezuela and its move to seize tankers carrying Venezuelan oil. Ilyas Yakubu reports.
The Chinese-led drills were organized last year under the BRICS bloc of developing nations, and South Africa's armed forces said they will bring members of the bloc together to practice maritime safety and anti-piracy operations and deepen cooperation. Trump says Venezuela to send oil barrels to U.S. worth up to $2.8 billion. China, Russia, and South Africa are long-term members of BRICS, while Iran joined the group in 2024. The Iranian Navy was taking part in the drills while protests grew back home against the Islamic Republic's leadership. It was not immediately clear if other countries from the BRICS group, which also includes Brazil, India, and the United Arab Emirates, among others, will take part in the drills. A spokesperson for the South African Armed Forces said he wasn't yet able to confirm all the countries participating in the drills, which are due to run until next Friday. China, Russia, and Iranian ships have been seen moving into and out of the harbor that serves South Africa's top naval base in Simonstown, south of Cape Town, where the Indian Ocean meets the Atlantic Ocean. China's ships include the Tangshan, a 161-meter-long destroyer class. Ilyasu Aliaku, NTA News.
If you just joined us, this is the news on NTA International. Thank you for being there. Nigerian courts recorded a mix of landmark rulings and high-profile convictions in 2025. While some judgments settled long-standing disputes, several cases remain unresolved or pending in courts. In this report, judiciary correspondent Austin Ayube highlights key court decisions that dominated national discourse in the year under review.
The judiciary serves as a cornerstone for Nigeria's democracy, as it is a foundation for social stability and a fulcrum for national development. This is because it checkmates issues such as corruption, authoritarianism, violation of individual rights, executive and legislative overreach, breach of contracts, and many other issues. This explains why year 2025 was a challenging one for all prosecuting agencies of government, judges of courts at all levels, and legal practitioners. Charged by the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, Advocate of Nigeria, several high-profile cases were disposed of within the ambit of the law. For instance, in November 2025, Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the proscribed IPOB, was convicted of terrorism by the Federal High Court, Abuja, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Justice James Omotosho handed additional terms of 20 years and 5 years on separate counts. The verdict concluded his trial, which began in 2014 after his arrest in Lagos and continued in 2021 after his extradition from Kenya. In May 2025, the Supreme Court rejected a case filed by 36 state governments and the Nigeria Governors Forum. The panel said it had no jurisdiction over the dispute, which should be handled by the Federal High Court. The suit challenged the federal government's handling of recovered looted funds amounting to 1.8 trillion naira, 167 properties, 450 cars, 300 trucks, and 20 million barrels of crude oil. In the area of security, the Federal High Court Abuja in January officially declared the Lakurawa sect a terrorist organization. The group had terrorized communities in northwest Nigeria through violent attacks. A notable assault occurred in November 2024 when gunmen killed at least 15 villagers in Mewara, Ogi local government area in Kebbi State. The court also banned similar militant groups operating across northwest and north-central Nigeria. There were also verdicts on Rivers State political quagmire. In February, the Supreme Court annulled the October 6, 2024 local government election in Rivers State. The court stated that the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission did not meet the legal requirements under Section 150, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act, and also affirmed a Federal High Court judgment preventing the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Accountant General from releasing statutory allocations to the states. And to strengthen the electoral process, a lecturer, Peter Ogban, a soil science professor at the University of Calabar, was convicted for election fraud. He was sentenced in March 2021 to 3 years in prison and fined 100,000 naira, with the Court of Appeal in Calabar affirming the conviction in April 2025. Ogban, who was the returning officer in the 2019 Akwa Ibom Northwest senatorial election, was found guilty of manipulating results in favor of one of the candidates in the election. In October, the Federal High Court Abuja restrained Professor of Political Economy Pat Utomi and associates from creating a shadow government. Justice James Omotosho ruled that the concept was unconstitutional and inconsistent with Nigeria's presidential system. Still in 2025, the Supreme Court dismissed a suit by the Osun State Attorney General on the withheld local government allocation for lack of locus. The court ruled that only elected local government chairmen can sue over local government funds, but describing federal government withholding of funds a grave breach of the Constitution. In the same December, the Supreme Court affirmed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's power to declare emergency rule in Rivers State. The Apex Court confirmed his authority to suspend elected officials temporarily during an emergency to maintain law and order. The case followed a challenge from Adamawa State and 10 other PDP-led states. There were several other criminal and civil cases that were disposed of, and many others being prosecuted by the DSS, EFCC, and ICPC pending in court to be attended to in 2026. Prominent among these include the case of financial fraud instituted against former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, former Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, and former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, and others. In order to fast-track these cases, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and other critical stakeholders in the administration of criminal justice are pushing for more reforms, particularly amendments to some provisions in the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015.
AJA came into being to fast-track hearing of criminal matters and possibly discharge the accused persons who are now named defendants. But how well has the AJA helped? I am not an advocate of reform when it comes to changing laws. My problem also and always is the operators. The operators tend to cause trouble for us, and in the end, what we're trying to run away from, we're still deep shit into it. In UK, the trial commenced today. In the next 2-3 months, you know your fate. Determined. When in Nigeria, they look for bail, civil application, they bring in moribund issues and say, oh, terms of bail application. Then they say, oh, the clerk has not seen the form yet. Go and visit the man's house to confirm whether the shorty is a credible person, whether it's his real house or not his real house. That takes too much unnecessary delay. So the bottleneck we have is not the legislation, it's not the law. The problem are the operators. How well are these operators grounded?
Legal practitioners hope that such reforms will reduce the workload on the judges and prosecution, thereby making adjudication and prosecution of cases more flexible as the country approaches another general elections.
The nucleus of trial and criminal trial is the police investigation. That's the primary position. That's the igniting factor. Once those factors are being queried, it becomes obtuse. Then the whole thing becomes null and void. And to that extent, the accused persons or the defendant is left off the hook because the defense comes to that area. And you cannot establish the fact of criminal against the person. So high-profile political patterns you see in Nigeria, the next thing you see as they are arresting, tomorrow they are on television showing the man they are arrested without finishing the investigation.
In Abuja, Austin Anyebe, NT News.
Thank you, Austin. And talking education now, the federal government of Nigeria has unveiled a comprehensive policy framework aimed at reducing the cost of education for parents, improving learning outcomes, and promoting sustainability in schools through the adoption of reusable, high-quality textbooks and strengthened quality assurance mechanisms. The policy statement jointly issued by the Minister of Education, Dr. Maruf Tunji-Alausa, and the Minister of State for Education, Professor Sueba Said, forms part of ongoing reforms to reposition Nigeria's education sector and ease the financial burden on families. The ministers explained that the policy prioritizes the use of standardized, durable textbooks designed to last between 4 and 6 years, while expressly prohibiting the bundling of disposable workbooks with textbooks in schools. The approach is intended to ensure that learning materials can be reused across multiple academic sessions. As part of border sector reforms, they noted that the federal government has introduced a uniform academic calendar to promote consistency in teaching, learning, and school planning across the country. In addition, the ministers stated that graduation ceremonies have been streamlined to curb unnecessary financial pressure on families. Now, the National Industrial Court Abuja Division has restrained all members and agents of the National Association of Resident Doctors from calling, directing, organizing, participating in, and embarking upon any form of industrial action. Justice Emmanuel Anjuma Sublim gave the order in an interim injunction filed by the federal government through the office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. The court temporarily barred members of the association from embarking on any form of strike, work stoppages, go-slows, picketing, or any other form of industrial protest or disruption. The association is equally restrained from taking steps preparatory to any form of industrial action from the 12th day of January 2026. The interim order remains in force pending the hearing and determination of the motion on notice fixed for the January 21, 2026. The association had earlier threatened to commence strike on Monday, January 12, 2026. Some members of All Progressives Congress in Zamfara State have raised an alarm over alleged sabotage of the ongoing e-registration and revalidation of membership embarked upon by the party nationwide. They accused some influential members of the party in the state for undermining the process as part of their grand design to whistle down the party in Zamfara State, paving way for the opposition to retain the power beyond 2027. Jamilu Ibrahim Gusau reports that the allegations were made at a press briefing in Gusau to appeal to the leadership of the party at the national level to wade in and prevent damages in the party.
Conveners of the news conference under the auspices of amalgamation of different support groups in support for the re-election of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said those behind this are deliberate to sabotage the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu by denying old and new members joining the party. They said the ruling All Progressives Congress in Zamfara State has a brighter future of reclaiming its mandate in 2027, hence the need for some leaders in the state to close ranks and desist from anti-party activities.
We appeal for an independent and transparent investigation into the request APC membership e-recession exercise. We urge the party leadership to respond promptly within a timeline for the investigation and corrective actions.
We are confident that the leadership, especially at national level and the zonal level, will do the right thing.
They appealed to the national chairman of the APC and well-meaning party supporters within and outside Zamfara State to wade into the matter with a view to resolving it for seamless ongoing exercise. In Gusau, Jamilu Ibrahim, NTA News.
Before we go, let's take a look at the weather forecast in Nigeria and some parts of the world. And that concludes the news on NT International this hour. Thank you.